I'm going to read this question and then I'm going to give you an answer. And I'm wondering if you are all going to feel as concerned as I have as I read this question, and as proud as anything of the person that sent me this question, that they stuck to their guns. So I'm going to start reading it to you now, and then I'll give you my answer. I've got lots to say about this one. It's actually a really, really good example of a toad. Okay. Hi, Elizabeth. Now, before I start, I've changed the name of the person in here. Look, as I read it, I don't get the feeling that any of us in here would know this person, but I just want to make sure. So he's become my generic Fred. I normally talk about guys as Fred, and so that's his name, Fred. Okay. Hi, Elizabeth. I met a guy online named Fred. We made contact initially by text, as you do. He called me the following Friday night at 9:45, suggesting a quick meet. I agreed as I was at home with nothing much to do. He came to me, so I had to only go a short drive around the corner to a local McDonald's. We were both interested and conversation flowed. He walked me to my car and literally wanted to put his tongue down my throat. I got out of there, although flattered that he liked me, but I didn't know him. We went out the following night for dinner. I told him to take it slow with me. We had another pleasant night. He wanted me to go back to his place, and I said I wasn't comfortable with that, so I went home. I still wasn't sure if I liked him or not. The next day, he sent me a very explicit sexual text message telling me he couldn't wait to get my clothes off, and described what he wanted to do with me. Ah! And that's literally what's written here, and I'm thinking the same thing. I asked him straight out if he was after sex, because if he was, I was the wrong girl. His reply was that he wanted both a sexual and a relationship as well. He told me he had 2 teenage children. Hi, Jessica, how are you? He had 2 teenage children. I have 2 adult children. He then invited me to his place for dinner, and we could do plenty of kisses and cuddles. He acknowledged that was all. I told him I wasn't comfortable with that too soon. In the back of my mind, I couldn't forget that explicit text message. I made out I was sick, so couldn't go for dinner, and to give me more think time. He was maintaining contact with me every day. The following week, he suggested dinner again at his place. I thought to myself, don't you get it? So I decided to just call him and be honest where I was at and talk to him. I suggested we do something else so I could get to know him better. So we went to the movies and I met him there. I could sense during the movie that he wanted to hold my hand, but I couldn't. So I just focused on the movie. Afterwards, we had a coffee and a pleasant talk, getting to know each other. He walked me to my car and I couldn't get out fast enough. Gave him a quick kiss and left. The next week, he suggested dinner at his place again. He acknowledged that he would behave himself. This all got a bit much, so I decided to call him and call the whole thing off. My question, was he a toad or genuine? Did I let my fear get the better of me? All I know is that I run from committing to a relationship. I don't trust who I attract. Was that sexual text message a red flag, or was that naivety on his part? I feel like I have turned into a prude. I have been single for 5 years now from a previous casual relationship which ended badly. I was super hurt. When I ended it with Fred, I felt relieved to be back to normal life. Did I cut my nose off to spite my face? I don't want to be single forever, but unless I get over this fear, I think I will be. Note, after I called it off, he appeared fine about it, and that was that. He didn't fight for it. Was he a toad or a possible prince? I've got so much to talk about with this one, let me tell you. Well, the first thing I want to say to you is it's very hard to know whether he is definitely Prince Charming with a naive approach, or is he a toad? Because it could have been that he's used the sexual approach in the past and it's worked for him. So he's got a bit of a mere male one-size-fits-all. However, having said that, there are a whole page, 2 pages and a bit of notes I've got here of indicators as to why you could have made a lucky escape from a poisonous, slimy, slippery toad. So basically, your first warning sign is he's disregarded your boundaries. You've said, I'm not comfortable with this, and he has just acted as if you haven't said anything and kept asking. So that tells you that he doesn't regard your boundaries. He's thinking about, I feel like sex, I feel like I'm okay, I feel like this is really good, so therefore you should feel like that too. And that's a bit scary because it indicates this could be a guy that is never going to respect your boundaries regardless whether it's sex, whether it's money, whether it's living together, whatever it is, which will put you in a space where you are constantly saying no. This could be a guy that has poor impulse control. He feels like having sex, so let's do it. And so then you find yourself as the gatekeeper. And often when you're the gatekeeper in a relationship, you find yourself in exactly the headspace you're in now. And if you've ever felt like this before in a relationship, this is a big red flag for you, that this is something that guys that you might find yourself with do. Okay? Because if somebody keeps pushing your boundaries, oh, why don't we do it? What's wrong? Why, you're a prude, or let's do, you start to think, well, am I okay? And that's exactly what's happened in this question. You've said, am I okay? And so you need to be mindful that if you're in a relationship with someone like that, it has the potential to really, really destroy your confidence. There's something here about him being really hypersexual. I mean, you're telling me the first time you met him, he walked you to your car and then stuck his tongue down your throat? I don't like the sound of that either, because what that tells me is that men who are hypersexual like that, they tend to objectify and idolize women. And when we objectify something, we view it as an object. And when we view someone as an object, we're not actually in tune with their feelings, which kind of links in with this disregarding your boundaries, doesn't it? So if he's not in tune with your feelings and he's objectifying you and he's hypersexualizing you, then that means you're going to get somebody who is going to make unrealistic sexual expectations, but also who may well put you on a pedestal. And this shows a real immaturity of thinking, because what's happened perhaps for him in his past is that he has had problems with women in his life. And so rather than sit with that and say, this is how I feel about women and I need to process that and work out how I am in the world, what he's doing is he's saying, I need to find the perfect woman to show me that women are okay and that I'm okay and can tell me I'm okay, because therefore I don't have to work myself out. So it's a bit scary that he could be putting you on a pedestal, and we know that when men put you on a pedestal, they have unrealistic expectations, and the first mistake you make, the higher you are, the harder you'll fall. So, yeah, I've got a blog post that I'm going to put in the comments for you to read, and it's called Life on a Pedestal, or what have I got? The Danger of Life on a Pedestal. And I think that would be a very good one for you to read in understanding what guys are like who have this sort of, this attitude around women that they are there that they don't see them as people. They sort of have these very unrealistic expectations that are all around their own inability to self-soothe, understand and manage themselves. Now, I know as people get older, there's a tendency to want to move into a relationship very quickly, but this is really, really quick. I mean, and when we know that when a guy rushes you into a relationship, it could well be that he knows he struggles in relationships and he struggles to maintain a relationship. And so if he's rushing you in, then this is a big indicator. He's a toad. All right? So, I also don't think it's an indicator when a guy rushes you into a relationship that he's thinking about his own feelings and how he is in the moment, which of course sits with, hi Roz, how are you? Which sits with this whole sense of having poor boundaries and poor impulse control. Because you see, he's thinking about how he's feeling in the moment. I think I'll do this, so I'll do it now, kind of thing. Which is not a good thing for you in terms of being in a long-term relationship with him, because as I said to you, you'll end up being the gatekeeper. He also isn't looking after your feelings. He's rushing in because he feels good. Well, he's not thinking about the fact that if you had agreed to have sex with him so early, then what if he changed his mind? Is he just going to say, oh, well, see you later? And is he going to just move on? As you said to me, he didn't even fight for it. He didn't even try. He just said, oh, well, and moved on. That really sits with me around this sense of objectifying women, seeing them as objects. Oh, well, if you don't work out, I'll just move on to the next one sort of attitude. Or if I can't get what I want, there's something really, really not right here in the way he's processing feelings in the relationship. Now, you've said to me that you seem to always meet the same kind of guys and you don't trust your own feelings or what you're attracted to. Well, here's the thing. We'll all be attracted to a certain type of guy, but you need to remember that there's a continuum. And if a guy, you might be attracted to guys who are have poor impulse control or don't respect boundaries, or you might be attracted to a guy who's very distant, who's emotionally unavailable. But there's a spectrum of that behaviour, and you might be attracted to someone that's emotionally unavailable but's aware of it and is always working on it and has the capacity to communicate with you in a really healthy way so that you overcome those issues in your relationship, because no relationship is ever perfect. However, it might also be that, you're getting attracted to guys at the toxic end of the spectrum. So it's really important that you bring these sorts of things into awareness. And I'm really glad that you've reached out to me. And the fact that you even are aware that there's some patterning in the sort of guys that you're attracted to, that's huge, because as you start to become aware of the patterning, you're then able to take steps to interrupt it and make a different choice. I'd say to you, if you're meeting the same kinds of guys, are you trying to meet them on dating sites? Because we know, look, there are healthy guys on dating sites, and I know from having done premarital counselling and maybe I'm meeting couples when there's stars in their eyes, but you know that people don't get married at the beginning of their relationships anymore, and I meet people that have been together for long periods of time who've met on dating sites, and it's been fabulous. But I've also seen a lot of couples and girls who had their heart desperately broken by really toxic toads who are marathon dating on dating sites, and it's about how many notches they can get in their belt. And you don't know that this guy is in that headspace just because he's older, because I know you said he's got adult children. Just because he's older doesn't mean to say he isn't in that headspace. So I would strongly suggest to you that you think about where you're meeting guys. So maybe it might be more helpful for you to start socializing more and meeting them in person, to actually look at making friends. You never know who knows who that can introduce you to somebody. And, even thinking about taking up a hobby or having going into a club. And, I don't mean patchwork or floral art, because obviously you're not going to meet a guy there. But thinking about something you could do that might be a bit more unisex, where you might meet a guy in person and get a chance to know him. And hi, Katrina, how are you? And get to know him in a more, holistic way, I think might be helpful for you. So look, is he a toad or not? I can't tell you for absolute sure and certain, nobody can, but I can say to you that there's an awful lot of indicators there that tell me that I am really, really pleased that you did not go back to his place. I'm really proud of you for not doing that, and I'm really proud of you for sitting with that fear of loss of if you don't go that he might move on, and that you didn't go because safety comes first. And if you had been date raped or worse, well, you're not going to recover from that, especially if he murders you. And look, I mean, the chance of it happening is low, but tell that to the girls that it happens to. You know, tell that to them. Because once it's happened, there's no going back. And really, if he had liked you as much as he made out, you're right. He would have respected you. He would have fought for it a bit more. Whereas it seems to me that once he's tried and tried and tried, you haven't broken your boundaries and given in, just moved on. So that tells you a lot about where he's at, a lot about where he's at. And the fact that if he could move on so easily, you know, what if he changed his mind? Is he just going to move on like that and leave you an emotional wreck? Anyway. So look, I can't tell you for sure and certain, but I can say to you that it would be really helpful for you to get as certain as I am about the indicators. And how you do that is by, well, asking questions, because obviously I've answered your question this morning and hopefully given you more insight. I would strongly recommend you come into our group and you listen to all the other questions I answer, because that will help you learn more and more. And of course, there is my book, Stop Kissing Toads, Pucker Up and Find Your Handsome Prince. I've got a copy here. It is available on my website. And it basically goes over everything you've talked about. So if you'd read my book, you would be feeling very clear from that very first date when you know, even him rushing to meet you and you turning up at McDonald's and then him literally sticking his tongue down your throat. This book would have said, warning, warning, turn on your toadometer, toad alert. And you would have been then would have known the next things to look for. Hi, Laura, how are you? To be really certain that you wanted to move on. Don't second guess your boundaries. Everybody's boundaries are different. And just because yours are different to his doesn't make them wrong. Just because they're different to mine or anyone else's doesn't make them wrong. Okay? It's about you really being tuned in to finding the right guy. And look, with this book, it even talks about online dating. And it may well have been that you may well have picked up some of the indicators if you chatted to him a little bit longer online and not even wasted your time meeting him. So that's my book, Stop Kissing Toads. It also helps you to tune into yourself, work out the patterns that you might be that might be causing you to choose a particular kind of guy, and how to interrupt those patterns. It steps you into how to interrupt those patterns and how to really tune into your triggers so that you can make a different, more healthy life choice. We have Meetup on Sunday. If you have not gone over to Meetup, our group on Meetup, I will put the link in the comments, because we are having lunch and you will have me